I got in the car, called Alicia, said, I'm here. Everything's okay so far. So, everything seems to be okay. But I told her about what it looked like. And I said, this is hard to say, but you might think I sound like I'm nuts, but I'm looking across at the skyline. And where the World Trade Center was, I actually see the silhouette, a dark silhouette. She said, oh my God, I can hardly believe it.
Hello, and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. I'm your host, Carl Buccellato. Let's get the next journey started. Hello, and welcome to Along the Way Life's Journey. Our guest today is a man I have known for many years, and I've had the privilege of working very closely with him in a professional capacity. I quickly came to recognize his values and subsequently enjoyed his friendship. Craig Davis is a highly regarded leader in the world of mortgages and finance. Under Craig's leadership, he built the nation's leading mortgage banking operation, employing more than 18,000 people. Craig's strategies established WaMu as the number one brand in the industry. He served for years as the lead independent director on the board of directors for Ellie Mae. After retiring, he pursued his passion for real estate and partnered with his lovely wife, Leisha. They have become a significant force in the Laguna Beach market. He is a graduate of U.S. International University, San Diego, graduating cum laude. He has served upon many boards, including the Local Initiative Support Corp. And Seattle Repertory Theater, Mortgage Bankers Association, the National Advisory Council, Fannie Mae, and the World Trade Center. Married to Leisha for 48 years, they have one son, Brett, daughter-in-law, Shannon, and two of the most beautiful granddaughters I have ever seen in my life, Holland and Inland. Please welcome my friend, Craig Davis.
Well, good morning. Thank you for such a great introduction, Carl. I want to just tell you what a pleasure it is to be here with you today. I've enjoyed all the years that we've known each other, and you're just such a great friend, and I just love everything about you and everything that you do and stand for. So let me start by just saying greetings from the People's Republic of California.
Well, hold on tight. Change is coming.
Well, I hope you're right. I'm here. We could use some change. I'm here in Laguna Beach, and you can see that I'm in the midst of the supply chain with all the boxes directly behind me. I did leave room, however, for a little space to display three of my favorite all-time authors. Obviously, John Irving, which we've talked about before, and Ken Follett. But I have a new one who wrote this book, To Every Page of Turning, One Life's Journey. So if there's anyone out there listening to this podcast and you haven't bought this book, go out today and buy it. It is magnificent. It really is. It's a work of art. You really are to be congratulated for.
Thank you very much. I told my publicist when they said after the book came out, it got a lot of attention. They said, you have to do a podcast because it'll be great for the book. And a lot of people are interested. I said, I'll do the podcast under one condition. You get 2 minutes worth of commercializing. The rest of it, I just want to talk with people about their stories. So they just got their 2 minutes. Let's talk about your story.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
Okay. So I gave you an intro, which is amazing and probably fractional of who you really are and what you've accomplished, because you're really a very accomplished person. I've never met anyone who knows you and speaks of you that doesn't speak with the highest regard. You are truly a gentleman. You are an accomplished individual. You set your mind on things. You understand how to make them work, and you get it done. I mean, I'm looking at the background behind you there. Until a few years ago, you were not a real estate developer, but you decided to do it. Now you've done what, 20, 25 locations already? So
yeah, well, that's about right. Well, if you retire, you don't play golf, you got to think of something that's productive. And being in real estate development has been very rewarding on a number of levels. I mean, clearly from an economic standpoint, I think we caught the wave at the right time for Laguna Beach. We really understand this market. But equally as important is it's becoming a legacy for the family, for my son Brett and our granddaughters. Felicia and I are very proud of that. But also, right up there is the amount of people that we're able to employ and actually impact their lives. And that is really critical. And we've got to know that the people that are the same, we use the same crews all the time, and they've become like extended family. It's really wonderful.
That's really great, because I think that, too much is given, much is expected, and you and I both have certainly been blessed. We came from humble beginnings, and we came to a place in the world where many people look up and say, "Oh, I wish I had what they had," and they have no idea what it took to get here, in the first place. Yeah. But I know who you are, and I agree with your philosophy that if you can build something that benefits you and your family, great. But if you can build something that does that, as well as providing other people with employment and opportunity and a chance for the future, all the better. And I know you do that. You're that kind of a man. So tell us a little bit about Craig Davis and your beginnings, because I know that you were you were a rated athlete as a youngster, weren't you? You were a competitive swimmer, and tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, that is true. I'll give you a little bit of my journey. I'll try not to bore the audience too much with that.
No, bored. They're here to listen to you.
My father was a DDS. He actually was a periodontist, and his father was a dentist as well. His claim to fame was using the first X-ray machine in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
He married my mother after the war. He served in World War II, and always loved to hear the phenomenal stories that he used to tell. He was part of the first task force that went to the South Pacific, so he always had some great stories to tell. Oh. I was a kid that always had a lot of ambition. Even though my folks could afford to give me an allowance, I was the kind of kid, very much like you, that wanted to earn my own money. And so I did everything that I possibly could. I was a competitive swimmer. I was ranked in the state of California. That gave me an entree to give some swimming lessons at a fairly young age. But, at 14, I was washing dishes in a seafood restaurant to earn extra money. I used to lifeguard in the summer. Took whatever, jobs I could, bussing tables at the local club. That was one way to get in. We didn't belong to it, but it was a nice way to be able to get into the club once in a while. I started as a busboy and then graduated to being a waiter. Sounds like a story that Sig Anderman, I think, told on his podcast.
It sounds familiar, doesn't it?
A lot of this sounds familiar. There's a lot of commonality, I think, in our backgrounds and how we grew up and understand how we all have understood the value of work and how important that is. So my journey from there was obviously go to college, majored in English and history. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do after graduating, and I decided that I was going to go up to Lake Powell for the summer, and that's where I met my wife, Felicia. She was going to CSU, and at that time was pre-vet. She later became an RN, but we met, and it's kind of an interesting story on how we met. We were both waiting tables. She was by far the best server in the dining room in Lake Powell. For those of you that have been there, it's the Rainbow Room, famous for serving rainbow sherbet complimentary after each meal. But after being there about a week or two, and I kind of had my eye on her, but we really hadn't spent any time. I really didn't get to know her very well. And she came over to me and said, "Gee, the maitre d' just said we have a VIP coming in tonight. And I'm not that terrific with the wines. Would you help me out serving the wine? Thinking quickly on my feet, I said, you know what? Why don't we combine our stations this evening? And
Genius.
I'll help you with your tables. You help me with mine, and we'll pool our tips. And I'll buy you a drink, and we'll split up our tip money in the bar. So, which we did, and that was the beginning of a romance. But what's interesting is that the VIP group that came in was actually George Romney and his kids. George being the governor, right, of Michigan, and Mitt Romney was there, as a young man, older than Leisha and I, a little bit. And years later, when he ran for president, he came to Newport Beach, and he was at one of the local bookstores, and he was, doing the whole
signing.
Yeah. You're familiar with that? You know how that goes, right?
Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
New book, right? You know how that goes. So that was actually, it wasn't a local bookstore. It was one of the national bookstores. But we stood in line. We got him to sign the book. And lo and behold, we told him the story. He had enough time. He says, I don't remember you guys exactly, but I remember being there and the whole occasion. So that's, I like to exaggerate a little bit once in a while and tell everybody, if it wasn't for Mitt Romney, I'm not sure Leisha and I would have been married for 48 years. But I want to give him full credit here.
No, you guys have more lasting ability than he had. So
yeah.
48 years. I mean,
yeah. So after that summer, she came back to California with me, and we both worked. And I had been doing some management of a couple liquor store businesses, and we got into that. We decided to get into that business in Colorado. She's from Colorado. We moved to Colorado Springs, and we saw some opportunity outside California, because California at that time was regulated. They had fair trade. Everybody had to charge exactly the same amount. So there was really no way to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. So we moved to Colorado, where you could price the way you wanted to price. And we did that, and we scraped some money together that we had saved, borrow a little bit, got a store open. As you know, you could leverage your inventory in that kind of business. So if you could turn it over quickly, it's kind of interesting. That's why you get in with little bit of cash, not a lot. Yeah. You financed your inventory. And we did okay for the first year. But then we discovered something that we really hadn't anticipated, which was that a lot of the big sales were going to Denver, because the Denver newspapers were in the Colorado Springs marketplace, and they were advertising. Well, you might ask yourself, well, why didn't we advertise? Well, there was a ban on liquor advertising in Colorado Springs. So I called a lawyer in town and said, hey, this just doesn't seem fair. We're losing business. I can't compete with the giant discount stores. I'd like to be able to do that. He said, well, I think you could win on constitutional grounds, but you're going to be fined severely every day. I figured out, so we thought about it. We figured out how many days we could survive. It was about a month. And we rolled the dice. And fortunately, the newspapers loved the idea, obviously, because it was revenue for them. So they covered it on the first page. We also got coverage by the local NBC affiliate. And overnight, we became a huge success. We were able to triple the size of the store, and that was a real successful venture. We did that for another 3 years. Including, I think you probably remember the movie Smokey and the Bandit with
yes, I do.
Reynolds and Jackie Gleason. Well, we were in Colorado. I got a wholesale beer license, and we were shipping 2 or 3 semi-loads of Coors beer to the East Coast, to places like Florida and New York. So I'm sure sometime in that period, you drank a Coors beer.
At least half of one of those trucks.
At least half. Yeah, exactly. Living where
because
you live.
Coors beer was That was
of
the
course,
beer.
it was gold. It
If
was
you kept it cold, it was the best.
right. And we kept it refrigerated and got it on the trucks. And it was from Golden, Colorado, and it was gold. And
Right.
so we were very successful with the business. But that wasn't our real love. So it was something that was good at a young age to do. And it was a great business experience. So we sold the business, moved to California, sold our house in Colorado Springs. We got half the house in California for twice the price. We sold the house in Colorado Springs.
Your first lesson in the industry.
Oh my goodness! And we were on a mission, to get back to at least the same level of lifestyle that we had in Colorado Springs. But it was tough because Alicia at that point wanted to go back to school and get her degree in nursing. So she started to go to school. She graduated in a few years. And at the same time, I decided to pursue my passion, which was the securities business. I always loved the stock market. I had a grandfather who taught me a lot about it. I used to go to the brokerage firm with him every chance I got as a kid. Used to have the ticker tapes going across
Right.
there. You can have all the computer stuff. So
See,
I would.
Young people don't remember those ticker tape things. It's
Oh yeah, I would. Try to memorize every single security that I possibly could. I went across the tape. He gave me a few dollars, I think $100 to invest at one point, and so that was a real love. And so when we came back to California, Alicia started to go to nursing school, and I got a job working for Merrill Lynch, and that was kind of the beginning of my journey from that standpoint, going through life to get to the point where I was, running the largest mortgage banking operation in the U.S. So
what a springboard. Oh.
It was perfect. It was great training. Got to go to New York, met a lot of terrific people, and very,
And
very.
you had a supportive wife that was willing to allow you to get into something that was unknown.
Right. Well, we were living off the money that we had from the sale of the business while she went to school and I started off, because you don't exactly make a lot of money when you first start working in the securities
She supported
business.
your decision because it was life-changing.
She's unbelievable woman, unbelievable.
Yes.
So, and it was, I remember one of the life experiences was flying to New York late on a Sunday, getting there at around midnight, and finding out. And these are the days where you didn't have bags that you could check, right? And I was going for 6 weeks, so I had one big suitcase, and of course you checked it. And I was supposed to be on 44 Wall the next morning. Get off the plane about 11:30 at night. Found out that my bag went on to London. So I was dressed almost as nicely as I am right now for this.
Did you have shoes on?
Oh my God. Yeah. At least I wasn't wearing flip flops. It was, at least I had shoes on. And so I was able to get a toothbrush and a razor and show up my first day on Wall Street wearing the clothes that I had flown out from California the night before, while everybody else had a 3-piece suit on.
Made an instant impression,
one of
I'm
those
sure.
great life experiences, right? Yeah, it was. So, I guess there's always those that you remember. And I always remember obviously, one I think I've talked to you about in the past, which is my first day of high school as a freshman and my first day as a senior. I walked into a high school and didn't know one person in the school. So those are the kind of life experiences.
Yeah.
That probably prepared me for, not having a 3-piece suit in New York when I arrived. It doesn't
you've also
kill you, it makes you stronger, right?
That's right. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And you've also walked into hundreds and hundreds of rooms full of people that you didn't know and took command of the room. That takes confidence to do that.
Oh yeah, speaking in front of thousands of people at a time when we would bring in the teams from all over the country. Absolutely, it nothing will prepare you. If you survive it, that prepares you for a lot of things in life.
That's right.
I know you've experienced similar things.
Absolutely.
As well. So I spent a little time at Merrill, really liked it. Interesting building a book from scratch. But a couple of things happened, kind of like the transformation of what happened in the liquor business in Colorado Springs with deregulating the ban on advertising, the same thing happened in the securities business with deregulation. Fixed commissions were blown up. And so this was the advent of discount brokerage. Firms like C.D. Anderson and Schwab and Fidelity all started. And so after being at Merrill Lynch for a while and seeing what was going on, and then deregulation allowed the brokerage firms to have money market accounts, that was devastating the banks and the savings and loans, because
the whole paradigm shift of the whole industry.
The whole paradigm shift.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was just, it was amazing. It was like the earthquake that shook the financial world, when that was the beginning of it. And there I was, watching that happen. And so I decided to make a change. I thought the future might be more into the discount side for me, and potentially management, than just building a book and pretty much just staying in that in that box at Merrill. So I went to a regional firm here in Irvine, spent a number of years there, and as I was just saying, the world continued to change, and banks started to get into discount brokerage, and they started to acquire firms. You probably remember that Bank of America acquired Schwab. Years later, they went private again and spun off, but they were owning all these businesses and starting to own these businesses and broaden their product base. And so being at this firm, a colleague and I thought, gee, if we could somehow put some investors together and acquire it, we could, on an omnibus basis, provide these services to banks who didn't acquire them, or potentially savings or loans. And we made a run at it, but unfortunately we were a day late and dollars short, and Schwab bought the firm because they were out consolidating the marketplace as well. So with that roadblock, we decided, gee, who will be next? And after the banks, and clearly it was the thrifts. We didn't know a whole lot about that industry, and this is before the internet. So we took a trip to the library, got the books out, and looked to see who the largest thrift players in the country were. Fortunately, many of them, like the top 5, were in California based. Firms like Home Savings of America and Glendale and San Diego Trust, Savings and Loan, and American Savings Bank, and others. And so we put together a really extensive plan for thrifts to enter the marketplace. And we thought they would be a good prospect because there was nobody left to buy. And we thought if we could present a way for them to start one from scratch, it would be less capital. And if they had trust in our vision, that might work out. And it took about 6 months of knocking on doors. I took the number 1, 3, 5, 7. My friend took 2, 4, 6, 8, and I cold called Home Savings, the largest, and got a hold of the CFO at that time, a gentleman by the name of Mario Antosi.
Yeah.
And Mario, it turned out to be a very important person in my life a few years later. But Mario became shortly thereafter president. After about 6 months of presenting to a lot of thrifts and being close to saying, boy, I'm not sure anybody's going to give us a call. I did receive a call from Mario, and he said, how soon can you start? And we started the very first broker-dealer subsidiary of any thrift in the country. And did business in 7 states, from California to New York, and it was a very successful operation. I was very proud of that. It took a lot to create a business from scratch and to go through that whole regulatory process. And during the 7 years that I was there, we also integrated an insurance agency as part of our business. And it was really a great base for going from the pure securities world into the banking world. Well, then another earthquake kind of hit the S&L business, and we had the financial crisis that everyone remembers, prompted by some poor lending activities and other circumstances. And Mario, being the best thrift operator in the country, and incidentally, the father of the adjustable rate mortgage,
right?
He invented that.
That's right.
Because when deregulation hit and there wasn't a fixed 5.5% passbook savings account to fund loans for 30 years, and money market rates went to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, you had to have a mortgage that went up and down with the rates you were paying. Otherwise, you went out of business. So Mario was recruited because he was the best operator in the country to come to American Savings Bank when the FDIC and the feds went in and ended up having to take it over, and they separated it good bank, bad bank. The Bass, Robert Bass from Texas, I'm sure you're familiar with that name. And David Bonderman, who later founded Texas Pacific Group, were the key drivers. And they brought Mario in to head that up. And Mario was there about 3 days when my phone rang and said, boy, oh boy, do I have a job for you to do over here. We have quite a mess on it.
I got a deal for you.
So that was a little bit of a risk because of the financial position the company was in. But I had so much confidence in Mario, and he was such a key individual that I didn't hesitate for a second. 2 weeks later, after giving notice, I was part of the American team. And there I was able to not only manage the broker-dealer and the insurance agency, but about a year later, the credit card division and half the branch system was added to my responsibilities. Everything was going great, except the lending business. So I'm on the retail side. I'm on the complete opposite side of the lending business. But the lending business wasn't doing well at all. They just couldn't get it off the ground. The company was pretty much a one-trick pony, just doing adjustable rate mortgages. And sometimes when the market goes in a different direction, you're not going to have volumes. And there was no diversification. It was all California. And when a downturn hit California, they were actually losing money in the mortgage business. And so they had some really serious soul searching. They let the chief lending officer left the organization, and they had to make a decision on whether they wanted to continue to write checks, meaning Bass and Bonnerman, on a monthly basis to keep the lending business afloat, or to abandon it. So at a critical board meeting, it was discussed that maybe they should, because Mario obviously wanted to continue with it, and another person had joined the organization of American, Bob Barnum, who was the CFO and later became president of American. They both had a lot of confidence that it could be turned around if the right person led it. They decided that they would have a task force try to prove the point and present to the board. A couple of months later, they asked me to do that. And that was my entree into the mortgage business. I presented to the board a few months later, and then they asked me to
run with it.
To run with it. Yeah. And that was really exciting. At the time they asked me to do it, I barely could spell lending, but I was a quick learner. I applied everything that I had learned in all the other disciplines that I had responsibility for, and gladly took that over. And at that point, American was not even on the map in market share. But 3 years later, we were the number 2 lender in the state of California. But more importantly, we had changed our business model. We had gone from being just a straight adjustable rate mortgage lender to offering every mortgage product under the sun. And the strategy behind that was to be able to go to realtors and brokers and no longer be the lender of last resort,
Right.
but be the lender
Right.
up front.
So they came to you with the best product.
Right. And
that
it
they
was
had.
power of yes. We
Yeah.
have a loan that will
Right.
fit your need, whatever it is.
Right.
We also started to open locations outside of California to get diversification, Colorado, Nevada, adjacent states, Arizona. So with the product expansion, changing the way we did appraisals, I mean, everything from an operational standpoint, service loans, from soup to nuts, all the ways down. We really became a powerhouse lender on the West Coast. And that was probably 7 or 8 years into my time at American. And I walked into Bob Barnum's office one day, and here's another one of these, transformational conversations. And I said, Bob, just want to let you know I'm going up to Seattle next week. I think Washington is the next logical expansion state. We've done all our preliminary research and numbers, and we're going to go up there and talk to folks and scope out a few locations. And he said, well, I'm glad you're sitting down, because you are going to Seattle, but maybe not the way or the route for the reason that you think. And so at that time, he called Mario in, and they said, look, you're the first to know. On the executive team, we're going to be acquired by Washington Mutual, and they'll want to talk to you about continuing to lead the mortgage operation. So just a couple of months later, right after Christmas, the day after, Alicia and I flew up to Seattle, and we started that adventure. And that was very interesting, because Washington Mutual did not have a very strong mortgage operation. That was one of the key things they were after with the acquisition of American. I was able to bring my team along, and from there, it's pretty well known history. Washington Mutual went on an acquisition tear, acquiring eventually Great Western and Home Savings and the Dime in New York. And we integrated all those operations and also bought other mortgage operations.
And you eventually became the biggest in the industry.
Yeah. So after a number of years of not only acquisitions, but building out the business, doing a lot of work on the technology side as well. We became the largest mortgage banker in the country, doing business in all 50 states.
Which, let's face it, that means in the world. The largest in the world.
That's true. So that was it was quite an adventure up there, and I didn't spend very much time in Seattle. Alicia loved being in Seattle, thank goodness. But I was at the airport parking my car next to all the pilots, the monthly parking.
I remember the days when people used to say to my kids, they'd say, "Yeah, we live in Hollywood, Florida, but Dad lives at 36,000 feet."
Yeah.
I was flying all over the world all the time. But
that's exactly it. But it was nice living in Seattle. We enjoyed it very much. And it was, you talk about impacting lives of people, to have responsibility for 18,000 people, to build an organization.
Huge burden.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And just a lot happened then. And one of the really life kind of changing events for so many people occurred while I was at WaMu, and I've talked a little bit about it, but it was 9/11.
Yeah.
And we've talked about how impactful that was. And
why don't you tell the people that story, because I think that it's a remarkable story.
Well, the day it happened, I was actually off site. For those that know Seattle at Bell Harbor, I was off site with my team. We were doing our planning meeting. It was the beginning of our planning, the 3-day planning meeting for the next year. So everybody was there. And my team, a few of the people were from Seattle, but the majority were in other places. People responsible for servicing were in Chicago, and a lot of the lending key management people were down in Irvine in Southern California, where the old American operation was. So we were there, and like so many, I got that phone call. Alicia called me, said, "You better turn the TV on. You got a TV there. Something's going on." And we all watched it in just, disbelief what occurred. Well, after getting everybody, some sort of transportation or whatever they needed to do over the next hour or two, I went back to HQ, to headquarters. We sat down with the whole executive team and talked about what we needed to do. We had a loan center in the World Trade Center. Fortunately, it was on the second floor, and everyone was able to get out in time. It was just amazing. Yeah, it was just a miracle, really. But having acquired the dime and having other operations, there was a lot of branches, mortgage operations, North American Mortgage, everything. We had all that was under the WaMu name, but there was a lot of people we were responsible for, in a lot of real estate there as well. So in that meeting with the executives, I said, we've got to get to New York. And I looked around the table, and there was like blank stares. And I said, well, anyone who wants to join me, please do. I'm on the first flight. I know it's going to be several days before they open it up. I think it was 3, I believe. But 3 days later, I was on the first flight leaving Seattle. And I flew to Newark to go and visit everybody. And, this is just something that you just never forget. I landed in Newark. I had a car there to pick me up. I walked out to the car. It was still light outside. It was an absolutely crystal clear, beautiful day. But even in Newark, I could smell the pungent odor of an electrical fire is what it's, and it's very, very distinct. Yeah. I got in the car, called Alicia, said, I'm here. Everything's okay so far. So, everything seems to be okay. But I told her about what it looked like. And I said, but I said, this is hard to say, but you might think I sound like I'm nuts, but I'm looking across at the skyline. And where the World Trade Center was, I actually see the silhouette, a dark silhouette. She said, oh my God, I can hardly believe it. And I said, yeah, I could actually see the silhouette. Yeah. So we drove across, and I'll come back to that at the end of the story. But got dropped off at the Waldorf. And the amount of security was unbelievable to get in, layers of security. Checked in, and person said, okay, we have a room for you. And I said, just out of habit, I always, I always say, I'll take a room on the highest floor. And kind of almost a chuckle from the person saying, well, you're the first person that's asked for that. I said, well, I'll still take it. That's my moment of defiance. I'll take the top level. Yeah. And I said, so how many people are staying here? They said 3. You're the third one that's checked in. I don't expect maybe 1 or 2 more people. So anyway, the next day, I had one of the regionals in the morning pick me up, and we went to the retail branches and the loan branches and everywhere that we possibly could to visit people. And it was so amazing, Carl, when I would go in and they saw, and most of the people knew me, especially all the lending people, but the retail people knew who I was as well. And to walk in and to have a quick meeting in the break room, the tears. They were just in tears that
Absolutely.
somebody cared enough to come out
Absolutely.
and visit. And after a few stops, it became really clear because I asked them what they needed and what we could do and how could we support them. And we would hear the same stories about they were hearing things from not only employees, but even customers that needed financial help for various reasons, for the obvious reasons. And so a couple hours later, I had the regional get everybody on the phone and said, look, we got all the managers from all the branches in the greater area and said, there's a common theme. We're forming a committee. You're all on the committee. The regionals will also be on the committee, not to make the decisions, but to offer guidance. And you have carte blanche in terms of what you need to spend to help people. And I'm leaving it up to you at your discretion, because I know you use good common sense to do that. And the reaction was just incredible. And they did that. I told them I'd cover it when I got back to Seattle, which we did. And, that meant so much to so many people. And because when you're working with an organization, it's an extended family, and
Absolutely.
that's how
more time there than you do with your own family.
Yeah,
and you want to know that the people that you work for care about you, that they are willing to cry with you as you did, to travel cross country, to be there when in your time of need. That was a magnificent gesture on your part, and I'm sure very heartfelt. I'm sure it was difficult for you to hear all that and live all that.
I appreciate that. My whole philosophy, in managing, is would always drive HR crazy. At home and in American and at WaMu, the HR people would go nuts because when I would do my org chart, it was up. I'd flip it. And I'd flip it because I never view myself at the top of the org chart. I view myself at the bottom, helping up through the organization. Because when you really think about it, it's the customer, whether the customer is a retail customer, with a checking account, or it's a broker, or a realtor, your customer is on top. Everything should be done to support the customer.
That's right.
And so that's just my philosophy of management. They would hate it because everybody in the book, for the board would have an org chart the way they like to do it. And I insist on flipping it over. So let me just finish this, circle all the ways back, which is my habit. When I tell stories,
I know, and I'm patient
here. I love to do this, but I usually remember to get back to where I started. And that was seeing what I saw going across and telling Alicia that the image, of the silhouette. About 2 or 3 weeks later, I came home from work. There was a copy of the New Yorker on the kitchen table, and Alicia says, "You have to see this." And what they had done was the New Yorker cover. They ran it twice through the ink, and it was a picture of the skyline of New York without the World Trade Center, but just its silhouette, and they had gone over it in blank ink twice. And in the article, it said that thousands of Americans saw this silhouette image in there, and it was kind of like, I guess, the phantom pain that somebody gets if they lose a limb. And very similar to that, the brain couldn't, or dealt. That's how the brain dealt with it, and that was the vision, and it was shared by really thousands of New Yorkers. So that's my New York story.
I've heard you tell me that. I want to ask you another question about that, because you and I and Alicia went down to World Trade Center for the monument, and we were there. In those moments, emotionally, whatever you were feeling, did you look up and see the towers? You had an expression on your face that said to me it was a mixture of gratitude and grief.
I
I
did
could
look
see it.
up. I was awed by the sight and the fact that I could see planes flying over.
Yeah.
And in a flash, recalled what I had just told
I
you
thought you
about
might
it.
have.
Yeah,
I thought you might have.
yeah.
I could
That's very,
see.
that's
I
very
could see
perceptive
your
on you.
face. I could see your face, and I quickly took a picture of you and didn't capture it, but I could see gratitude and grief in your face. I
Yeah.
could see it.
It was just one of those amazing moments, and
Yeah.
it was great to be there with you as well. Obviously,
Yeah. We've spent some time together doing,
I'm looking forward to spending some more time.
and as
We
am
get
I.
through
As am
this
I.
craziness
So, so
and traveling. So,
So now you've retired. You're doing your real estate business, and your
yeah,
son and daughter-in-law are involved with you. And I know
all right.
you guys started a couple of years ago. You started a little business in town there, which again is a departure for you. You went into the pizza business. I wanted to
Yeah.
know, you have Sicilian blood because you went into the liquor business and then the pizza business.
Well, we wrapped things up in 2003 in Seattle, and when we wrapped things up, we did a little traveling, and around a few years later, we decided we were going back and forth between. We had owned property in Laguna. We're going back and forth between Laguna and Seattle. So around 2005, we started saying, okay, we've caught up on all the traveling that we've missed our whole life, working so hard the last 30 years, seeing some of the things we've always wanted to see. Now what? And we both have a passion for real estate. Alicia's mother was a realtor, and she and her father was a wildlife conservation officer, but they started a terradome house building business in Colorado. Later in life, and so she grew up with a lot of sawdust around her as well. So I will just say though, in 2003, when one thing I would just want to add when I left, because this is a real important part of everything for me, and how I met you was in 2003 when I decided it was time to leave. Had done everything that we can do in Seattle. It hit all the mortgage publications, and Sig Anderman saw that I was leaving WaMu and immediately called me and said, hey, I've got this little technology firm that I started a few years ago down here in Northern California. Why don't you come on down and take a look at it and see if you'd be interested in joining the board, which I did. And like you, it was one of those great to join the board, and it's like, now get your checkbook out.
Right.
And I told Sig I'd love to get my checkbook out, but I have two things that are non-negotiable in terms of joining the board. And he said, what's that? I said, I've done this whole three-piece suit and corporate stuff for so long. I said, two things. I'll come to the board meetings. I'll do anything you would like to do. I'll do this 100%. No ties and no socks required. So to circle back to New York, years later, when we took the company public, Sig calls me and goes, we're going public. It's winter. We're going to New York. I know you won't wear a tie, but will you wear socks? I said, Sig, I love you. I'll compromise. I'll wear one.
When he introduced us to you, and we were sitting down, and the first day you came into the boardroom, and you took a seat next to me. And it was funny because I was laughing because neither one of us were wearing socks.
Yeah,
and we were like locked together from there on.
That's right. This guy from Florida and this guy from California. Yeah, like we became like brothers, fast brothers. We really
Absolutely.
did. It was great. It was terrific.
Absolutely.
So that was a great experience being on that board, and we did some wonderful things. And
Yes,
I won't talk about it because I know Sig did in terms of his.
I'm very proud of what we accomplished there. And I'm more proud than anything of the harmony in the board. We really had a great team of people. We worked together like an efficient unit. And we respected each other. Those that came in that didn't, we quickly got rid of.
Yeah,
But that's another story for another show.
that is. That is.
Well, we're running on 50 minutes so far, so I got to
Okay.
close up. But
Okay. So we started I'll just tell you, we did start the Davis Bay as an LLC
yeah,
to do real estate development in Laguna Beach. And we've done a number of ground up new builds. We do major remodels. We do historic renovations. And I'll tell you, the historic is probably what we enjoy the most, because you're really giving something
yeah.
back to the community. And it's been enormously successful and gratifying. And now our son Brett is actively involved, and it'll be something that, as I said earlier, will be a legacy for him and the granddaughters to carry forward.
So there's a rumor. Is it true that the approval board has requested that you teach courses to people to submit their applications, because yours have never been refused? You've always done yours right.
Well, it is true that it is absolutely a grueling process to get through in Laguna. You have to get through, a lot of the city stuff first, but then you get to the design review board. And the design review board really does love the work that we do, and we have an excellent reputation. But getting to that point sometimes can take 9 to 12 months just of bureaucracy.
Wow.
And it does drive, as we've discussed, enormous cost into the process. But this is a market we know and love, and we know every street and every house, and it's been great being able to focus on that and to hand something over to the family as well. So
proud of you. I really am proud of you.
Thanks, Carl.
I love you. There's no doubt about that. You're closest. You're as close to me as my own brother, and I love you. But I'm also very proud of you. You're a man of distinction. You're a man of your word, and you like to do things the right way. And I'm very proud of that. So I'm going to have to say goodbye.
I was just going to say ditto, because we always say ditto. I feel exactly the
Yes,
same
we do.
thing about you.
So just hold a
All right.
moment, because I have to close down over here. So I've got a couple of minutes. And I want to just thank everyone for joining us today. This is our second iteration. We tried to do it a week or two ago, and somehow something messed up in the technologies, and Craig was gracious enough to come on and do it again. And frankly, this is an entirely different show than the first one was. It's really interesting how much we have to talk about between us. So I want to thank you all for joining us. I want to thank you for being here, and I hope the show was as good for you as it was for me, and I know for Craig. And I want to remind you all that new shows will be coming out every Wednesday morning. You could look to your podcast listings, and you can look to find my book, as Greg is helping you to see there. It's To Every Page a Turning. You can find it on my website. You can get it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and it was a bestseller on Amazon. And so I do approve anything you may want to do to ask questions about it. Please do call, send in your information, and remember that write your story down. Every one of you have a unique story, as Greg and I do. If you don't write it down, it's lost. Write it down for your families and for your legacy. The world needs to hear it. Okay, go out and tell someone you love them today. That's it. Bye. Thank you for tuning into the show. I hope that it resonated with you. It certainly did with me. And I hope it encouraged you to realize the true power of your story. As a reminder, new episodes will be released Wednesday mornings on your favorite podcast apps, and also on YouTube as well. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn your notification button on to ensure that you receive updates on new episode releases. I'm grateful for your reviews and your support. The love is certainly felt. Keep it coming. You can reach out to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn, or stop by my website, toeverypageaturning.com. All links are clickable in the show notes for quick access. Do you think that you or someone you know may be our most inspiring guest yet? Let's hope so. Click on our contact page and get in touch on my website and share your story. I look forward to reading each one personally. My best-selling book, To Every Page a Turning, which was published by Mascot Books, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and many more popular book retailers. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Till next time, remember that every day is a new opportunity to write your new page in your incredible journey. And it is incredible. You're the only one who has it.